How about that for a backlit picture, huh? Hey guys.
A favourite video of mine that I watch more than current MotoGP is the Atlantic Series race at Mallory Park 1986, where Barry Sheene was on the UK TV Saturday Grandstand giving an interview saying that he had spotted a talent from America and shouted his airfare ticket over to participate in a race which was a bits and pieces Suzuki. Can you tell us about that era?
Absolutely. So that was race of the year at Mallory Park. The transatlantic we had done earlier in the year, and when I was over for the transatlantic variant, I got to be pretty good buds. We didn't win as a team, as an American team, but I won. I scored more points than anybody else. So, and Barry was like, do you have to get back? You got another race? I was like, no, I don't. Well, he said, well, why don't you stay? I'd like to get one of my 500s going for you. And I'd like to take you a test. We'll test you at Snetterton. I was like, are you kidding me? You think I'm going to say no? I went. I think we went and stayed somewhere near Barry's house, and I got to go see his house. And just so enamored with what a nice guy he was, and what he had accomplished, all of his accomplishments in motorcycling. But man, he lived the life too. And we got to go test, and he said, man, the test is really good. You've got to go back to America because you got another race coming up. The race of the year is in like 3 weeks. And he goes, why don't you go home? He goes, and I'll pay for your airfare to come back and do race of the year. Like, sure. And I had never seen Mallory Park. It's not real tough to learn. There's not much to it. But, we did everything we could to win the race. And the funny part about it was a bike that Barry had gotten out of the Suzuki Museum or some English museum, and he took it into the race shop and they prepped it. Well, one thing that you had to do on those bikes was the throttle housing had it was two cables on each side, and if you closed it too fast and went back too far, you could pop the two cables off. And they used to put a pin in the housing, drill the hole, put a pin in it to stop you being able to do that. Well, they also then I'm going to say super glued it in, but aerodite, I think is the right word for it, whatever, some type of English that they put, some product that they put on it to stop the pin vibrating out. Well, the pin didn't get aerodited in, and it did vibrate out. The last 4 laps of the race, it was a 250. So I know Roger Burnett won that, but when I told him that, he's like, you're freaking making that up, Schwantz. He goes, it was not. He goes, that thing was still running. I was like, no, I promise you. But no, that was that was so much fun, and to get on a 500 and race one, with a bit of anger under your helmet, it was like, man, that was all I wanted to do was ride 500s from there on. But I still had to go back to America. I had a Suzuki contract with American Suzuki to finish the Superbike Championship. So,
what about the progression through the bikes in the earlier years, going from the Square 4 motor to the V motor? How did that change your riding of the bikes and their behavior?
What was interesting, and I think probably better for me as a rider, was I was riding a GSXR 750 Superbike that had 135 horsepower, and that's about all that Square 4 had. And I don't think the V4, when we got it in '87, I don't think it had much more than that either. So, it was a different, the biggest thing I remember 86 to 87 was then have to push that stupid thing to start it at the beginning of a race. If they would have continued with push starts, I think I'd have really struggled to do much of anything. But, riding a really good, fast Superbike and an 80, basically an engine that was developed up till 84 as far as the Square 4 RG motor went. And then when the RGV came out, if it made 140, I'd be surprised. All I really noticed was how the bikes, especially from my GSXR to the first RG that I rode, how much lighter the RG felt and was than the GSXR. But back then the GSXR didn't weigh, but I mean, we had to put weight on it to get it to the 400 pound minimum in America. We had to add 20 pounds of lead to the bottom of it. I mean, it was a pretty light bike. But but just, and then the RGV being a full factory bike, you know, it was right there at the weight minimum. And that was 115 kilos back then, you know, just not even 250 pounds. I mean, lighter than your average motocross bike. Definitely lighter than a 4-stroke one, but yeah, I mean, a 2-stroke, was probably lighter than that. And like I said, made 100. I think when we started the project in '87 with the factory, I don't think it was much more than 140. If it was, you know, it may have been 2 or 3 or 4 more horsepower than that. But it wasn't a very fast bike in a straight line. It handled really well, but I mean, as your experience will tell you, slow shit's easy to ride. When they start making big power and going really fast, it's just, you know, just double the difficulty every time it gets 5 or 10 horsepower.
I got to ride your 89 bike 2 weeks ago, wasn't it? Yeah, 2 weeks ago. So yeah, it was something special. So
I got to ride the 89 bike, and you know, you ride them 89, 90, 91 as the seasons progressed. It was, you know, yeah, okay, it's a little bit different. No, this one's fast and a straight, but I had no idea how much more violent the power was on the 89 bike to the 94.
Yeah.
I rode them in Germany, came out of the last, you know, did a couple laps, got everything warmed up, knee on the ground. Yeah, well, I feel like I'm riding pretty good. Come out of the last corner. I mean, and I came out of the last corner. I thought, you know, everybody's standing on the wall. I need to do a good wheelie. Wah, smack, smash, bang, wah, it's like, golly, you know, it's been that long since I've ridden? You know, maybe that's the problem. Got on the 94 bike, come out of the last corner, second lap, just you know, 4 gears down the front straightaway. So much easier to ride, so much. I mean, and so, you know, the 89 was just off or on. There wasn't, you know, you didn't really have, I mean, maybe 2,500 RPM on a good day for power band, and it was just such a different machine to ride. But you'd ask me, yeah, my 89 bike was great. I loved riding the thing. If I hadn't crashed it 3 times and hadn't blown up 3 times, we probably could have won that world championship. But, you know, getting to ride them now, and, you know, with it not being something that you ride all year, and then it's developed, and yeah, there's a little bit of a change. Amazing in those 5 years how big a difference those 2 bikes were as far as power delivery.
That was going to be one of my questions, because I rode Roberts' 99 bike round Spa, and then obviously I had to go on your 89 bike, but your bike, I didn't want to do anything stupid. Like Roberts' bike was a bit different because it was at Spa, and I had a bit of time to warm the tyres up and that, and yeah, your bike was just. I know it means a lot more to Steve, and it means a lot more to me, and it was. But the difference in them, like you just said, like the power band on your bike was so small compared to the almost like riding Roberts' bike was almost a little bit like riding a 4-stroke. You know, it had the power sort of all the way through. So that was going to be one of my questions, and like obviously from sort of when you first jumped on them up until when you got off them, the difference you felt in how they evolved, really.
You know, like I just said in that explanation, is I never noticed, you know, they were different. You know, you go back and look through the books, and, you know, whoever's written stuff about this was a certain degree V, this one was a certain, you know, I had no idea any of that stuff was changing. I had no idea about anything mechanical. I was like, you know what, just make sure it doesn't blow up, make sure it's heavy enough at the end of the race, it's going to pass tech, to pass the weight minimum. But, you know, I don't think I could have told you that there was much difference had I not had that opportunity to ride the 89 and the 94 bike back to back like that.
I suppose because you were on them all the time. It's like when you're growing up, isn't it, as a kid?
Yeah, it's, you know, if there was a change from 89 to 90, it was a little bitty. But, you know, 90, 91, 92, they started big bang firing order. I mean, that was probably the biggest thing that I remember. You know, the biggest difference in any of them was, wow, when we got that, the bike seemed to be a whole lot, you know, not easier to ride, but just a lot less violent, I think is the proper description. But I don't think I could have told you from one year to the next, you know, yeah, the 89 bike just did everything good. The 90 bike, you know, it was okay. 91, was it 91? 91 we had to run Dunlops. 91 we had to run Dunlops. So that was probably the biggest change in from 90 to 91. 92, I don't know what we had in 92. It was hopeless. It wasn't fast. It didn't handle. It wouldn't go around the corner. It still stopped okay. And then in the end of 92, we went testing. The 93 bike was great. And the 94 bike, I think, was just as good, but Honda had finally gotten it right. So I don't think there's any beating them if they got their game on and the right guy on the bike.
Yeah. Do you think it helped you, like riding from the 2-stroke and the 500s going back to a 4-stroke? With a 2-stroke, you had to be a lot more precise, and you had to be on it, didn't you? Otherwise, that was it. Because when I rode the RG ran the TT, when I done the classic TT, you had to have it revving. If you was in the wrong gear, that was it. You just lose. It's not a matter of tenths; it's a matter of seconds, really, isn't it?
No, it absolutely it did, and I think you go back and get on a big heavy 4-stroke and you're just fighting that thing. You're like, man, come on, and you're backing the gas that much earlier because you're used to the hit of a 2-stroke and how light and how quick the bike reacts. But it was always fun coming back to America and getting back on the superbike because get back on like I said earlier, ride something that seems slow to you and you just everything works. I mean, you can't do anything wrong on it. I think as a rider, my technique must have improved a lot because I was a little bit ragged on the superbike, and you couldn't take that raggedness onto a Grand Prix bike. It'd freaking flick you off in an instant when you tried to muscle it around. So I think if finesse came into my game just a little bit, probably not as much as it needed to in 86 and 87, but I think that eventually helped me realize don't hang off the bike so far, don't put do this, do that, stay on top of it, be ready to react when it does start to slide. Don't put yourself in a position on that motorcycle where you're hung so far off of it trying to get it to turn that when the back wheel spins, it's just going to do nothing but throw you on the ground. So the big riding the superbike, I think I feel like it was so much easier to ride, and because the GSXR in 86 and 87 handled pretty good. 86 it wasn't very fast, but in 87 we had a really good bike, and the top speed was decent on it. It accelerated well, and at that time, getting back over and going and riding the new RGV in 87, it was just seemed like a really light version of a GSXR 750 to me because it didn't have very much power. And I think that really helped because if you'd have put me on 165, 175 horse bike like the Yamaha and the Honda probably were, for me to make that step would have been really, really hard, I think. Getting onto a new bike that wasn't fast, it, let me help Suzuki develop it maybe a little bit more around me than anybody else, I think really helped.
I've heard you say that for the over 100 Grand Prix entries that you've had on the 500s, that it was probably only set up good for, say, a handful of races. Can you explain what a good setup machine would do, what a bad setup machine would do, and how that compared to the other manufacturers? Did they also suffer the same setup problems and consistency?
I think the big thing for us at Suzuki was the Suzuki. You had to have the Suzuki 97, 98%. It had to be really close to right, almost perfect to even be competitive. If it was 93 or 94%, you were 6th or 7th or 8th or 9th. You weren't anywhere near the front. It's a good bike for me was Sunday morning warm-up, old set of tires from what I'd gone fast on in qualifying, do another 5 or 6 or 8 laps on it, depending on how long or short the track was, full tank of fuel, and just clicking off fastest lap, almost pole position time. Boom, boom. You come in, he's like, I may even want to run those same tires, but don't do anything to this motorcycle. It's perfect. And like I said, 3 or 4 times, at least not a handful of bikes that I remember just Le Mans, I think it was 91, started on the 3rd row. I was like, we used to call that the barbecue row because we should have stayed home and had a barbecue. And just 2 people in every corner. Boom, boom, boom. First lap, I was halfway to the front. 2 laps later, I was at the front and just rode away. It's bikes like that. It's like, man, why can't they be like that every weekend? Mind you, the old Le Mans had a lot of really hard braking at it, which really was the Suzuki strong point. So, yeah, those days were fun. You know, they were all fun, but there were some that were more fun than the others. That's for sure. I just did a piece. I just did a video for Hugh Anderson. He is getting inducted into the MotoGP Hall of Fame, and he's won 25 Grand Prix for Suzuki as well. And I think he and I might be the two with the biggest number, the biggest percentage of the 500 Grand Prix wins that they've had. And I in my video, I said, Hugh, I said, you know, 25 Grand Prix wins, well, you know, what an achievement. I said, and even more so, you and I both know how hard it's to do on a Suzuki.
But talking about your Team Suzuki, you've stayed loyal to Suzuki for your whole career. Are there any reasons why?
Well, I tried to ride a Yamaha at the end of '89, even to the extent of signing a letter of intent with Agostini. My dad and I got a phone call from a fellow from Japan who said he was Yamaha's team boss, and I forget, but I think we verified that with Aga, that it wasn't somebody from Suzuki saying that they were somebody from Yamaha. Anyway, they actually, the gentleman actually said, Kevin, we're honored that you want to come ride for us, but right now we think Grand Prix racing is in a really good place. You know, if we were to hire you away from Suzuki, we think Suzuki might stop racing. And I was like, wow, okay, well, then I'll just stay put. I talked to Irv Kanemoto a little bit at the end of '91, trying to go ride a Honda that he was going to tune, but just that never got more than just Irv and I talking. I think that's about it. But no, I mean, I'm happy I stayed. You know, it would have been my luck that I'd have left in '92 and in '93, that I had the rocket ship that they had, and then somebody else would have got to benefit from all the work that we'd done. So, you know, now dealing with them, you know, it's very sad to see him stopping Grand Prix racing again. You know, hopefully that'll be a couple of year hiatus, and they'll be able to get right back on board and get back out and jump into the deep end like they did this time. And
I understand you have your '86 Heron bike and the '93
just got it.
bike.
I have an '86. Got this first 500 ever rode, so rode it at Assen, Belgium, and Misano. I've got '93 bike, and my '93 bike has just been to Steve. 3 years ago, the engine had gone. When Nathan took it back and worked on it and brought it back, came back for Formula One and put the engine in it. And actually came back from MotoGP because I had a bunch of journalists up to the house and they got to see it run, listen to it run. Got a '94 bike. I've got my '85 super bike, the old GS 700, the first Suzuki that I got to ride when I got to try out with Joie in '84. So it's the same bike from '84 to '85, but this one's supposedly an '85 model. And that's as far as my collection of race bikes goes.
Yeah, we've been fortunate enough to have your '89 bike on circuit. I've got an original road Pepsi RG500 version, which was took its inspiration from your '89 bike. So we stood those side by side. Danny rode your bike, I rode mine, and I was absolutely blown away with how quick the GP bike accelerated away from the road bike. Now my road bike has been dynoed at 120 at the back wheel. Steve reckons that the rebuild of your bike was about 165, and it certainly made my road bike look like it was going backwards, and it was a bit surreal because in front of me is number 34 and I'm being overtaken by it, which was really funny.
I have 2 square fours. I have an old one, one that's got 10,000 kilometers on it that I bought from a guy in Europe, and then I have a brand new one in the crate, Canadian version, no miles.
Wow, what colours is that in?
I think it's the blue and white one.
Yeah, okay.
It's been in the crate so long, I don't know that I've ever actually looked at it. I've seen pictures of what I was supposedly buying. I might look in there now and see what they sent me, something different. But we're just building a new house near my parents, so some of the stuff that's in crates is going to get to come out and go on display. So, and I also have I'm motivated to try, and before I turn, I'm 58 years old now. Before I turn 60, I want to take all the race bikes and all the cool motorcycles that I have and take them to a track and ride each one of them, and invite a selected few friends and people to come out and watch, ride, journalists, write some stories, maybe sit down and try and tell a story about each one of the motorcycles or something. But anyway.
So that would have been the question. If you could take them to a track for one day, which track would it be, and for what reasons?
Well, I mean, if I had any of them, ease of access is what it's probably going to dictate to me. But I think I'd probably go to Suzuka, just because I love the place. I raced there 8 times. I won 4 Grand Prix. I never have won the 8-hour, but I think it'd mean more there than it would anywhere else. If not there, of course, it'd be Donington Park.
You've had some famous moments at Donington, haven't you? When Doohan took you out, and then with a flag, with the oil flag.
The oil flag. I was called to the steward's office after that race, and was told I needed to apologize to the marshals because I made them look stupid. And I looked the guy square in the face and I said, "Who was laying in the gravel in the first turn, trying to win a Grand Prix?" I looked friggin' pretty stupid, I think, and all that guy had to do was hold that flag out, and I wouldn't have been there.
Yeah.
Anyway, the look on my face, I wish we'd have had a camera. And when the guy said, "Well, Kevin, I'm going to need you to make a public apology." And this, of course, is in his best British accent, this guy. I'm like, you're joking, aren't you?
From all your iconic moments of being a marshal at Donington and the 93 overtake on the brakes at Hockenheim to William round Macau, in your mind, what do you hold as the fondest regard of all of those years? Whether it was a moment in the pits or a moment on the bike, what's your favourite recollections?
Everything between that first win and that last win. There's so many things that stand out. The other one at Hockenheim in '93 where I split the Honda and Barros. And it's like they're that far apart. There's no bike gonna fit. And of course they were kind of in movements to. One was I'm gonna get behind you. I want to get behind. So and I come out of that first turn and just up over that hill, scrubbed it a little bit, but no wheelie. And I was like, I was coming at him 10 miles an hour. I was like, I cannot do anything but split those guys. And when I went through them, I kind of turned my shoulders a little bit, just to not hit either one of them. Just all kinds of little stuff. The Macau was a lot of fun. I went back there 10 years ago for their 40th anniversary or something of the race, and it scared me. Riding a street bike, not even a race bike, but just riding a street bike around. I was like, you're kidding me. I raced here one day. And that riding around on the cool-off lap after the Japanese Grand Prix when I won in '88, thinking, well, what do you do now? What happens after you win a Grand Prix? Not knowing, having any idea about just everything in general. The very last win of mine at Donington with casts on both of my hands and down the front straightaway, reaching over with my left hand, holding the throttle. Had electric shift, so you just came out, get the throttle. Wasn't quite wide open, but I wasn't losing any ground to anybody. And I could get 2 gears and give myself about 5 seconds to shake my hand before I had to get back off get back up on the right hand with the right grip and start squeezing the front brake. To back to 7th almost in that race. Like the next guy that was going to pass me was going to be Kaczynski. And I was like, no, this can't be happening.
Well, I think that's about it, isn't it? You've, I mean, thank you for talking to us for so long. We didn't really expect you to talk for so long, mate. But just it's a pleasure to hear all the stories, and it'd be great to see you again soon, hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully,
you guys,
at one of Steve's events.
Thanks for having me on.
No, thank you very much.
Yeah, it's been our honour to talk with you. Thank you very much.